Every successful conspiracy has a fundamental secret: efficient communication. Without a reliable network of messages and signals, a plan can collapse before it even gets off the ground. Behind political coups and historical betrayals, the exchange of information was the most fragile link, capable of determining the fate of kings, nobles, and ambitious conspirators. The Pazzi conspiracy, one of the boldest plots against the powerful Medici family, failed partly because its participants couldn't keep their messages out of the wrong hands. A communication error can turn an ally into a traitor, a promising plan into a forewarned disaster. But how did the conspirators of the time try to avoid this risk? What were their tactics to escape surveillance? In this video, we will explore the secret methods used to transmit messages without raising suspicion, and how their failures sealed the fate of great conspiracies. To prevent their intentions from being discovered, the conspirators needed creative ways of communication. One of the most effective was the use of coded messages. By the 15th century, when the Pazzi conspiracy was being planned, there were already rudimentary cryptographic techniques in use to conceal important messages. One of the most well-known was the substitution cipher, where the letters of the alphabet were replaced with others, creating a code that seemed nonsensical to anyone without the correct key. Another popular strategy was reverse writing or mirror cryptography, where words were written backward and could only be read with a mirror. This technique was even used by Leonardo da Vinci in his manuscripts. In addition, there were book codes. The conspirators would choose an ordinary book and point to specific words or letters within it to form secret messages. This made it incredibly difficult for any spy to decipher the content, as they would have to know exactly which book was being used as a reference. The Pazzi and their allies may have used similar methods to exchange information without raising suspicion. However, any failure in decoding or choosing the wrong messenger could lead to disaster, as happened in many failed conspiracies. If a letter fell into the wrong hands, the plans could be revealed before they were even put into action. But coded communication was only part of the game. In addition to written messages, the conspirators needed strategic meetings and visual signals to ensure their intentions were understood without compromising the secrecy of the plan. Although coded messages were essential, nothing replaced the value of a face-to-face meeting. In the case of the Pazzi conspiracy, those involved needed to discuss critical details of the plan, without attracting the attention of the authorities or possible informants. For this, strategic locations were chosen for these clandestine meetings. Churches, for example, were perfect places for secret gatherings. As religious spaces had certain immunity from external interference, conspirators could meet under the pretext of prayer or religious meetings. Additionally, monasteries and convents were often used as meeting points, as they allowed for discreet conversations away from prying eyes. Another common strategy was to use private residences, especially those of trusted allies. Hidden rooms, secret passages, and even basements could be adapted for these meetings. However, there was a great risk. Any unexpected servant or visitor could expose the conspiracy. In addition to strategic locations, it was crucial that participants follow strict protocols to avoid suspicion. A common method was the use of recognition signals, which could be small gestures, coded phrases, or even symbolic objects carried by the participants. In this way, only those involved in the conspiracy would know who they were dealing with. However, even with these precautions, secret meetings always carried risks. If someone betrayed the group, or if a meeting was discovered, the entire operation could collapse. And it was exactly this type of failure that led to the downfall of the Pazzi conspiracy. Now, let's explore one of the biggest challenges for conspirators: ensuring their messengers weren't intercepted. No communication system is perfect, and in the 15th century, messengers were one of the most fragile links in any conspiracy. Even with sophisticated codes and methods, the conspirators still depended on people to carry their messages. And that made them vulnerable to betrayal, arrest, and simple human error. Messengers chosen for sensitive tasks had to be discreet and trustworthy. They often used disguises to avoid suspicion, dressing as merchants, priests, or ordinary travelers. Additionally, a common trick was to hide letters inside everyday objects, such as hollowed-out books, sewn clothes, or even inside fruits and breads. Another clever method was the use of invisible ink. Substances like lemon juice or milk could be used to write messages on parchment or cloth. The text would only become visible when heated, making it difficult for spies and enemies to intercept the communication. However, there was a constant risk: interception. Guards and informants were always on the lookout for any suspicious activity, and a captured messenger could compromise the entire operation. Torture was a common practice to extract information, and even the most loyal conspirator could end up revealing secrets if subjected to brutal interrogation. The Pazzi conspiracy case showed how a single mistake could destroy months of planning. Some messages were discovered, and certain participants spoke more than they should have under pressure. This helped Lorenzo de' Medici's forces react quickly, thwarting the conspirators' plans. But were there more sophisticated ways to avoid this problem? The answer may lie in cryptography. In the next chapter, we will delve into the coded methods used to hide messages, protecting the conspirators' plans until the last moment. Renaissance conspirators needed a secure system to communicate without raising suspicion. To do this, they used codes and ciphers that made it difficult to understand the messages if they were intercepted. Some strategies involved code words to designate people and events, while others employed more sophisticated methods to hide information. One of the most common systems was the substitution cipher, where letters were replaced with symbols, numbers, or other letters according to a secret key. This made reading impossible for anyone who did not know the code. Another widely used technique was the transposition cipher, where the letters of the message were rearranged in a specific order, making the content indecipherable without the correct key. The cryptographers of the time also relied on letter frequency to prevent their messages from being easily decoded. Since some letters appear more frequently than others in a language, the codes had to be designed in such a way that they did not follow these predictable patterns. The Caesar cipher, for example, shifted the letters of the alphabet a fixed number of positions, creating an extra layer of security. While it seems simple today, it was an effective barrier against untrained eyes. In addition to written ciphers, secret messages were also hidden in art and architecture. Hidden symbols in paintings, secret carvings in furniture, and even patterns in tapestries were used to convey information without attracting attention. Creativity was essential to keep secrets protected. Despite the ingenuity of these methods, the cryptography of the time had limitations. The process of encoding and decoding was slow, requiring everyone involved to know the key to the code. If a conspirator were captured and forced to reveal the key under torture, the entire system could collapse, putting the conspiracy at risk. In addition to written and coded messages, Renaissance conspirators also relied on secret meetings to coordinate their actions. In an age without modern technology, face-to-face communication was often the safest and most reliable way to exchange sensitive information. However, this required meticulous planning, as any public or suspicious meeting could compromise the conspiracy. The conspirators gathered in remote or hard-to-access locations away from the prying eyes of authorities or informants. Abandoned churches, infrequently visited taverns, and even trusted residences served as meeting points. To ensure no one else knew about the gathering, elaborate disguises and indirect messages were often used to inform participants of the details of the meeting. The logistics of these meetings involved a series of precautions. Before each meeting, it was common for the conspirators to use a signal or code to help them identify each other without raising suspicion. These signals could be simple, like a specific word or a discrete gesture, or more complex, like specific gestures in public places. Additionally, the exact time and location of the meetings were often changed frequently to avoid the conspiracy being discovered. The conspirators knew that if they were followed or watched, the entire operation could be compromised. Communication about these meetings was sometimes made indirectly through messages delivered by intermediaries or even by other people not directly involved in the conspiracy. Although these secret meetings were essential for executing plans, they were also extremely risky. A poorly planned meeting, an exchanged glance, or a slip-up in conversation could be enough to raise suspicion and expose the entire plan. Therefore, the ability to remain discreet and controlled was essential for the conspirators, and failure in any of these strategies could be fatal to the plot. The key to the success of any conspiracy was undoubtedly the ability to maintain trust among the group members and ensure that everyone involved followed the established protocols for secret meetings. Otherwise, the network of confidential information would disintegrate quickly.